Here's a hard truth that might sting. Most movies about teenage grief these days feel recycled, predictable, and frankly insulting to anyone who's actually experienced loss. But here's where it gets controversial. Pools, 2025, dares to suggest that sometimes the best way to honor the dead isn't through therapy or academic achievement, but through reckless abandon and pure, unadulterated chaos. This isn't your typical coming-of-age story, and that's precisely what makes it so compelling. Director Sam Hayes has crafted something that pulses with infectious energy while never losing sight of its emotional core, a combination that's surprisingly rare in contemporary cinema. The film follows Kennedy, brought to vivid life by the magnetic Odessa A'zion, whose recent standout performance in Jennifer Esposito's gritty Fresh Kills proved she's an actress worth watching closely. Kennedy represents every high achiever who's ever felt the crushing weight of expectation. She's the scholarship kid who aced her ACTs with a stellar 34 score, maintained that perfect 4.0 GPA, and seemed destined for success in the prestigious Chicago suburb of Lake Forest. But here's what most people miss about grief. It doesn't care about your achievements or your potential. Since losing her father a year prior, Kennedy has been spiraling, skipping classes with such frequency that expulsion looms dangerously close. When her counselor, Mrs. Lewis, played with appropriate authority by Suzanne Cryer, delivers an ultimatum: attend class or lose everything, Kennedy makes a choice that will either horrify or inspire you, depending on your perspective on conventional wisdom. Rather than conforming to expectations, she chooses to embrace the chaos, describing herself as more Robert than Jack, in what becomes a fascinating character study of someone rejecting societal norms. The supporting ensemble feels authentically messy in the way real friend groups often are. Reed, portrayed by Mason Gooding, is the former athlete turned quad workout enthusiast whose main qualification for friendship is his legal drinking age, a brutally honest depiction of how teens often form alliances of convenience. Tyler Alvarez brings surprising depth to Blake, the pre-med student whose unwavering compassion for Kennedy provides the group's emotional anchor. The dynamic between Delaney, Ariel Winter, and Shane, Francesca Noel, adds layers of romantic tension, with both connected to Reed through past relationships and current crushes. Armed with miniature bottles of Malort, a choice that anyone familiar with Chicago's most polarizing liqueur will find hilariously appropriate. This unlikely quintet embarks on their suburban odyssey. Dressed in swimwear, they transform into modern-day trespassers, hopping from pool to pool in an affluent neighborhood where every splash feels like a small act of rebellion against privilege and propriety. And this is the part most people miss when they dismiss Pools as just another party movie. Hayes is deliberately invoking Frank Perry's The Swimmer, that haunting Burt Lancaster vehicle about delusion and the American dream's hollow promises. However, where Perry's film served as a scathing indictment of suburban materialism, Hayes uses similar imagery for entirely different purposes. He's not critiquing the American dream so much as questioning whether the traditional educational path truly serves everyone, particularly those grappling with profound loss. The visual storytelling in the film's opening sequences is nothing short of breathtaking. Hayes employs sweeping single-take shots that barely contain the kinetic energy of these young performers as they race through the darkness. The pool sequences themselves are filmed with an almost ethereal quality. Imagine wading through liquid sapphire, where every ripple catches light like captured starlight. When the group eventually discovers Dale's vacant mansion, played by Raymond Fox, their exploration of the space channels the untamed spirit of Peter Pan's Lost Boys, turning architectural spaces into playgrounds of possibility. But here's where it gets controversial again. The film's second half abandons much of this visual poetry for something far more conventional. Hayes introduces a framing device involving a promotional standee that never quite develops beyond its initial comedic premise. Those dynamic crash zooms that made the opening so memorable virtually disappear, replaced by standard coverage that feels almost timid by comparison. It's as if the director lost confidence in his own bold vision, retreating into safer territory when the characters begin confronting their deeper fears and attractions. The introduction of an air conditioning repairman, played by Michael Vlamis, does restore some of the film's earlier magic, offering a moment of quiet wisdom that feels earned rather than forced. This character provides a different perspective on loss and healing, one that doesn't rely on grand gestures or dramatic revelations. Yet despite these structural wobbles, Poole succeeds primarily because of A'zion's fearless central performance. She possesses that rare quality that separates good actors from great ones, an ability to make every emotion feel simultaneously personal and universal. Her portrayal of Kennedy is volcanic, unpredictable, and utterly authentic, the kind of performance that seems to radiate energy even in the film's quieter moments. She understands that grief isn't always tears and therapy sessions. Sometimes it's rebellion, sometimes it's rage, and sometimes it's the desperate need to feel alive when everything inside feels dead. This brings us to the film's most provocative question: is Kennedy's path of destruction actually a form of healing? The film suggests that perhaps our obsession with academic achievement and conventional success metrics blinds us to other valid forms of processing trauma. Kennedy's 4.0 GPA and perfect test scores become almost meaningless when weighed against her need to feel connected to her deceased father. Her pool-hopping adventure isn't just teenage rebellion, it's a search for transcendence, for moments that feel significant enough to bridge the gap between the living and the dead. Pools ultimately stands as a testament to the power of embracing chaos over conformity, suggesting that sometimes the most profound healing happens not in counselors' offices or lecture halls, but in stolen moments of pure, reckless joy. It's a film that celebrates the messy, complicated reality of young adulthood while never minimizing the very real consequences of Kennedy's choices. So here's my challenge to you. Do you think Kennedy made the right choice? Is there value in her path of beautiful destruction? Or does the film romanticize self-destructive behavior? And perhaps more importantly, what does it say about our society that academic achievement feels so hollow in the face of genuine human loss? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Are you team follow your heart or team stick with the plan? Let me know in the comments whether you think Pools is a celebration of authentic living or a dangerous fantasy about avoiding responsibility.